Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu. I'm your host, Vincent Franchini from Tumler House, here with the Beatnik, Charles Coulombe.
Beatnik?
Yeah.
Beatnik. You mean like Jack Kerouac and Neil Cassidy and Allen Ginsberg, Ferlinghetti,
Exactly.
Greenwich Village, North Beach, in a coffee shop, bongo drums.
Absolutely cool, Daddy.
Cool, Daddy. Yeah. Lay it on me. Give the word, That's right. Little bird, with your beak pressed up against the pet shop window. There is no birdseed for you today, only death. Little boy was pressed up against the candy shop window. There are no jelly beans for you today, only death.
Wow.
Like that?
Wow.
Like that? So like Left Bank, Tangier, on the road, huh? Well, today is the 100th birthday of Jack Kerouac. Jean-Louis de Kerouac. Yes, indeedy. Nonc Jean-Louis. So maybe a little bit. Certainly my mom and dad knew a lot of beatniks. They got married in the village in the early 50s,
I'm
What
still
it
recovering
is.
from that poem. There is no birdseed for you, only death.
Yeah. It's allowing the bird to understand the existential You know what I'm saying, man? Where we're all on this plateau. We're all linked in and at the same time fighting it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it reaches down to who we are. That's what I'm saying. Each of us. What?
Wow, that's really deep.
Isn't it? Isn't it, though? No, well, I have to say, though, it wasn't all crap. I remember when we came out to Hollywood in the 60s, the hippies were everywhere. So I asked my dad, I said, Dad, who are these people? I said, they're the hippies. I said, well, who are they? He said, well, a hippie is a poor man's beatnik. And I said, well, okay, what's a beatnik? And he said, beatnik's a poor man's bohemian. And I said, well, what's a bohemian? Wonderful people, like your mother and me.
Okay.
So, of course, my dad was also the one who came up with the line, what's the difference between bohemia and squalor?
What?
Books.
Wow.
The same dumpy apartment full with garbage. If it has tons of books everywhere, it's bohemian. Take the books out, it's squalor.
Wow. That's good.
Well, he knew what he was talking about. I've been thinking today about the similarities. I mean, they knew each other, but both Kerouac and my dad came out of the same similar backgrounds. Jack was from Lowell, Massachusetts, from a little Canada, French Canadian ghetto in Lowell, and my dad was from a similar sort of neighborhood in New Bedford, Mass. And these little Canadas were all over New England. Basically, what had happened was that after the Civil War, tons of French Canadians came down to New England and settled in these mill towns. But then, in the immediate aftermath of World War II, and actually beginning a bit before, but certainly afterwards, when air conditioning came in, the mills mostly went to the south. So you had all these French Canadians with their parishes and schools and everything else, in these rotting mill towns. They're very clannish, very um, kept themselves to themselves to a great degree. And for a lot of their more adventurous members, this was a little bit confining. And then came World War II, and off they went and saw the world, that generation. Uh, Kerouac went into the Navy. My dad went into the Army Air Corps. Uh, Kerouac had some mental problems in the Navy. My dad went on to have 12 successful missions and get the Air Medal with Palm. Not that we're boasting, but um, after the war, they both gravitated to New York City and the bohemian scene in the village. My dad to study acting and Kerouac to study writing, and there it was. Well, I mention all this though because for both of them, there was sort of a built-in quandary. On the one hand, you're a Catholic, you're a French speaker, you're brought up to love the country whence you came and the millennial old tradition that made you. On the one hand. On the other hand, you're living in a completely different environment, a totally new world, in a country that you love, but doesn't necessarily love you in return. And that is at once very alien and very familiar. What do you do with that? Well, it was a dilemma. And Kerouac sought his way out of it, did all sorts of things, and ended up coming back, more or less. My dad dealt with it, I think, much more successfully. But it remained and remains a problem for me anyway. You know, I understand very well the sense at once of belonging and alienation at the same time.
Hmm.
And that's one reason why Kerouac, on the one hand, spearheaded the Beats, the Beatniks, and on the other hand, why he separated from them. So it's ironic in a way that the very things that they rejected as conformity, manners of dress and everything else, in the 50s, today, lo, these 70, 60 years later, are acts of rebellion against the current status quo. You wear a hat today, a trilby. Gosh, I can't think of
A
the
derby?
What's that?
A derby?
No, not a derby. Not a
A
bowler. That's a
fedora?
derby. Yes, a fedora. Boy, my mind is gone.
Yeah.
See, that's what happens when you fall asleep in your chair and sleep for 6 hours the way I did today. I did. But no, you get wearing a fedora and a suit today is a sign of rebellion against the establishment, whereas in the 50s it was a sign of conformity.
Oh.
Don't ask me what any of that means. But today is also, apart from being Kerouac's centennial, it's a much more important feast.
Go on.
St. Gregory the Great,
Hmm.
one of the greatest popes we ever had. May his example be followed by every pope from now till the end of time.
Hmm. What are some highlights of Gregory the Great? Can we do that quickly?
Oh gosh, he did so much, one hardly knows where to begin. Well, for starters, when he was the papal representative in Constantinople, he wrote a liturgy called, oddly enough, the Liturgy of St. Gregory, or the Liturgy of the Pre-Sanctified, which is used during Lent to this day by the Byzantine Rite, both Catholic and Orthodox. Uh, he was a Benedictine abbot. His abbey was on the Aventine Hill, oddly enough called San Gregorio now after him. He, as Pope, he sent St. Augustine to England, St. Augustine of Canterbury, because he was in the slave market one day and he saw a group of young English youths for sale. And he was asked, who are these people? And they were blonde and good looking. And he was told they were Angli. And he said, non Angli, he said Angeli. Not angels, but angels. So he decided that people with such nice appearances really should have nice souls as well, and sent St. Augustine to evangelize England. He was, of course, the first real codifier of Gregorian chant, hence the name, which was part of his monastic experience. He did a lot of other liturgical things. He wrote dialogues of St. Gregory the Great, which include the first and best biography of St. Benedict, the abbot. And he started the Gregorian masses because his predecessor as Pope appeared to him and said he needed 30 masses to be sprung from purgatory. So the custom of the Gregorian masses began with him when he said the 30 masses.
That's a lot of masses.
Yeah, it is. But it's the best thing for a dead person.
Was his predecessor a holy person? I mean, like, where did his predecessor rank, would you say?
Mediocre.
Oh, mediocre. Okay.
Like most of us.
Yeah.
So he did so many things in terms of reorganizing administration in Rome and so on. And there's the famous story of how when they had the plague break out in Rome, he shut the churches and forbade the sacraments. No, he didn't do that. What he did do, he didn't do anything remotely.
I was gonna say, what's going on here?
No, that was reserved for a later day when we had wise and holy clerics.
Yeah.
No, instead he led a procession against the plague every day. And one day, as the procession went by Hadrian, the mausoleum of Hadrian, he had a vision of St. Michael sheathing his sword to signal that the plague was ended. And sure enough, it stopped. But he had a statue of St. Michael put in the place where he'd had the vision. And that place, instead of being called Hadrian's Mausoleum, is now called the Castel San Angelo. So he did a lot. And he also, for lack of any real assistance from the Byzantine emperor at that particular moment, he basically became the civil administrator of Rome as well. So that was St. Gregory the Great. But you know what's coming up later in the week?
What?
Well, on Thursday, don't you know?
Right. Yeah, St. Patrick's. Yep.
Ah, that's right. And as I understand it, Officer Clancy is having a little party there at the tower.
Yeah.
Just a little get together with about 538 of his closest friends. And I understand himself is going to be, a little bit of Jameson's going along and to show the non-sectarian some Bushmills as well. Tullamore Dew, perhaps.
Absolutely. Are you doing something for St. Patrick's? You're I don't know if we should announce on the show. It looks like the Austrian mandate is
be gone. It's
Yeah.
Freedom Day, emancipation. We are free. Plus, having just come out of COVID, I have 6 months of total freedom anyway. I mean, there's still a few restrictions, but they're not all that noticeable. And in Vienna, the restrictions on the restaurants are still on, but it doesn't matter to me because I have just gotten out of COVID. So, I mean, freedom is hit, and the vaccine thing has been put away. The forcible vaccine. I think the sound of gunfire in the hills has kind of, given them something else to cogitate on. So St. Patrick's Day this year should be a real declaration of independence for everybody who's been hunkered down for the past 2 years.
That's a great idea.
Much as I hate what's happened to Ireland, I love Ireland, and I certainly love St. Patrick. Mind you, March the 1st was St. David of Wales. March the 5th was St. Piran of Cornwall. So March is very much kind of Celtic History Month. But there's another big feast on St. Patrick's Day that always gets forgotten, so I've got to point it out.
What?
St. Joseph of Arimathea,
Hmm.
who gave our Lord the Holy Sepulchre, and so we're told brought relics of the precious blood and water from the side to Glastonbury in England. So he's sort of in a sense, Celtic figure. I have a good friend in New Hampshire who's a French Canadian, and he, before he retired, he worked in a room full of Irishmen, and he'd always wear black on St. Patrick's Day. And people would say, why are you wearing black? Oh, it's in honor of St. Joseph of Arimathea. Why? Is there some other saint today?
Ah, nice. Well played.
Well, you know how French Canadians are. We're very nice people if you don't get to know us.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're here to help, basically. The thing though, seriously, to answer your question about what I'm doing for St. Patrick's Day, well, I went down with a couple of classmates and bought 16 kilos of brisket, which are now resting comfortably in a special brining solution, which will turn them into corned beef by Thursday. And then on Thursday, big pots should be procured, in which should be boiled together this corned beef, potatoes, cabbage, carrots, and this will be ladled out to my fellow students with great glee. I also bought a 6-pack of Jamesons.
Wait, what? A 6-pack of I
A
might be
box with
totally
six. A
Oh,
box with
okay,
6
because isn't
bottles of
Jameson's
Jameson.
whiskey?
Yeah,
Okay, because when I hear 6-pack, I think beer.
I know.
Okay.
Or soda. Or soda. I also engaged in some Guinness as well. So we'll be set for St. Patrick's Day.
Sounds like it.
Now, mind you, there are always the yeah but folk and the whataboutists. So for their benefit, I will say yes, I know corned beef and cabbage is not authentically Irish. The Irish don't eat it. They have bacon and cabbage. I'm aware of that. I'm aware that corned beef and cabbage is a purely Irish American thing, borrowed by them from the Jews when they came to the States and found that they couldn't find real Irish bacon. I get it. But you know what? I love corned beef and cabbage. There, I've said it.
Okay. So what are you doing for St. Joseph's Day? Hello.
I'm finding the Grail. As one does. No, I mean in honor of Saint Joseph of Arimathea, I'll think about the Holy Sepulchre, and I will think about Glastonbury.
No, the other Saint Joseph,
Oh,
Terror of
him!
Demons. Yeah.
I'm going to be in Prague.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
Nice
so I'll
place.
go to mass.
Yeah. Wait, on Saturday?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'll have to leave Friday, come back Sunday.
Okay. Well, whoa. Are we going to be able to do a show then next week, or?
Oh heavens, that's right. That's going to
I'm
be a little
glad we just
problematic.
figured that out.
Yeah, that's going to be problematic. It's going to be very problematic. Maybe Sunday night.
Okay, well, we'll see. It sounds like not a show. Maybe no show next week because my Sunday's booked. But we'll see. We'll talk it.
I'm doing this for your people, your mother's side. Well, Slovak, Czech, too. Sort of similar. But no, I'll be addressing the annual general meeting of the Koruna Česky, the Czech monarchist party.
Wow.
They have count them, three delegates in parliament.
Wow. How did that happen? That's not winner take all. Is that a winner take all system over there?
No, I think you have proportional representation.
Yeah, that's how that has to be. Yeah.
But they're very active, and in keeping with the way Czechia has been going the past few years. Let's put it this way: with Soros to west of them, Putin to east of them, I think any encouragement of the Central Europeans to doing anything, pulling themselves together, is a good thing as opposed to a bad thing.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, there's got to be somewhere in God's green earth that isn't ruled by morons.
That's true. All right, let us move on.
Do we have memes?
We have so many memes.
Nationalize the memes of production.
For the common good. Whew. Okay, well, first we'll start with Aaron, who on Twitter, he submitted a really nice meme.
Is he Aaron on the side of caution?
Oh. Wow. Right. Let's see. Let me see if we can put that up on the screen. Talking about annoying broads? Nah. Nationalize memes of production. Yes.
You bet.
That's what we're
Although you notice you got attacked as being a Sigma male for saying that you'd rather talk about pizza than annoying broads.
Yeah, I had to look that up. So I looked it up and I still don't know. Is that good or bad?
It's bad. It's way bad.
Like Sigma?
But Sigma, well, see, an alpha male is the most masculine you can be. I think Chad is one of the references for such a person. A beta male is somewhat less so. Gamma, delta, and so it goes. Sigma is way down there.
So alpha males talk about annoying broads?
Well, that would be the implication, that an alpha male would be all about annoying broads.
I think that logic is hugely flawed.
Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, you know what, guys? I'll tell you what. Let's talk about Joy Behar and Eleanor Clift. Yeah. Joy's hot. Eleanor's hotter. And so, I mean, I don't think so.
Yeah, not quite.
Would you say Joy Behar is hot?
I don't even know who that is, and I'm grateful.
How about Eleanor Clift?
I don't think she's ugly.
You don't?
She's a normal-looking old woman. What? I mean, like...
She's a hag. That's why I think she's hot.
I mean, do you look at all old women and meditate on how ugly they are? And how shriveled?
Just her.
Just her?
Because I was a McLaughlin Group fan for years. I didn't have a choice. But I do have kind of a sneaking affection for her, simply because she was the most adroit person at coming up with excuses for Clinton's misbehavior. She was always for Clinton, no matter what he did.
Well, I'm sure she was well paid for it.
Somebody had to be. Yet it sure wasn't Monica Lewinsky who was getting paid.
Yeah, it's so anyhow. Okay, so we stirred up a hornet's nest with this Pizzagate thing. It continues. We've had more discussions from patrons on patreon.com on our comment section. Everyone's really gunned up over who's got the best pizza. So perhaps Daniel, most of all, Daniel has given us a message for the ages. So I'm going to read that now. All right. Daniel says, as a paying patron, I certainly put up with a lot on this show. And
that's true.
I usually quietly bear my cross with the humblest of intentions.
And we love you for it, Daniel.
I, all too often, sit through all the talk of the greatness of places such as New York and New Jersey and LA, and I usually let it go as a part of the show I am so honored to have the privilege to pay for.
And we're honored that you do so.
Now, I am not one to defend Chicago by any means, but dismissing the Midwest as flyover country, that's a step too far. Charles should know better, having traveled the country extensively. As a reminder to Charles and everyone else, whether they self-identify as from Berkeley or not, I'll have you know that if you got off of the coast of the USSA and actually experienced the heart of America, you would know that St. Louis pizza is more than just Emos or Imos or whatever, however you say it, which is merely one company in St. Louis. One can enjoy St. Louis pizza without stepping foot inside an Emo's restaurant. Emo's may be mackerel on cardboard, and if the Tumbler House commissary wanted to save money in the budget, they should look at importing it. But St. Louis...
You shouldn't have said that. They are going to look into it now.
That's a cost-saving measure.
Mackerel on cardboard.
But St. Louis pizza in general is a wonderful thin crispy crust with edge-to-edge cheese and toppings. So if you really ate pizza for the lipids, cholesterol, and unsaturated fats, I would challenge you to try a piece. But while I'm on my soapbox, let me tell you more about St. Louis and its rich history.
Yes, you tell us. I'm for it. Local pride, man. That's where it's at.
St. Louis holds the title Rome of the West.
Yeah, they call it that.
We have a Catholic tradition dating back to the founding of our beloved city in 1764, 17 years before LA was founded. What other city can boast such a monumental achievement as having not one, but two cathedrals? Dare I say, three? First, you have the Cathedral Basilica, which has the most mosaics of any church in the world. The entire cathedral is covered in them. We also have the historical Old Cathedral, the Basilica of St. Louis, King of France, down on the grounds of the Jefferson National Expansion Memorial. And finally, we have the so-called Cathedral of the South. That is South St. Louis, St. Francis de Sales, now an oratory of the Institute of Christ the King Sovereign Priests. So beautiful, it would be a cathedral in any other city, especially compared to the modernist monstrosity in LA. Besides ecclesial attractions, St. Louis launched the Lewis and Clark Expedition, hosted the Olympics and World's Fair, both in the same year, 1904, the year in which we gave the waffle cone to the world. Ice cream has never been the same since.
Very true.
Furthermore,
very true.
We have other such delicacies you won't find anywhere else, such as toasted ravioli and provolone cheese.
Which I have had at Charlie Guido's on the Hill, just so you'll know.
Which is so specific to St. Louis that Microsoft Word thinks it's a misspelled word. This is why I, as a humble member of the custodial crew, beseech the French-Canadian Charles Coulombe to repent from any derogatory comments of flyover country, Chicago accepted, and march in solidarity with his French ancestry and the historic French city of St. Louis. Remember, it was St. Louis that bridged the gap between French Canada and Louisiana. Wow.
Woof. Well, let me say this about that. Number one, I can never repent of saying flyover country because it's true. You do fly over it. There's just no way around that if you're going from one coast to the other. That having been said, I have to endorse everything Daniel has said about St. Louis. Yes, it's true. And I can add a little bit more. For starters, the old Basilica of St. Louis downtown has a couple of paintings donated to her by King Louis XVIII of France. Moreover, if you go to the big cathedral, the current cathedral, all the mosaics and everything, which is so beautiful, the gates on the Blessed Sacrament Chapel were donated by Emperor Franz Joseph of Austria-Hungary. Lest it be thought I didn't know. And as I say, I've been to Charlie Guido's on the Hill, and eaten toasted ravioli there. The Hill, by the way, Don Vincenzo, is a big Italian neighborhood in St. Louis, just so you know.
Okay.
They don't just have French and Germans, they have a lot of Italians there too, and Poles. St. Louis is a very multi-whatnot place. Across the Mississippi in Illinois is beautiful East St. Louis, which used to have a lot more beautiful Catholic churches than it does now. The Rome of the West thing is quite true. There are so many gorgeous churches in St. Louis. One of them, I think, was St. Vincent's. The pastor was the late lamented Monsignor Martin Hellriegel, who gave us to Jesus Christ, our sovereign King. And wait, there's more. They're trying, I think, to close down half of them. The Archdiocese of St. Louis are.
Why?
Why manage decline? You know, sell the property, get the dough, etc. The idea is that these are parishes that either can't or are having difficulty supporting themselves. The money is best spent concentrated elsewhere, rather than the idea of using these as jumping off spots for evangelization. But then that would require, I don't know, maybe a liturgy that would attract people. But we know we can't do that because of trash can custodians. So it all gets very difficult. Basically, if you're in love with death, you've got a vocation to the higher ranks of the hierarchy. If you've got a belief in truth and life, then you have no business being there, apparently. Anyhow, the French element in St. Louis is not only present in beautiful, the old Basilica, it's also at the Soulard Market. But more than that, if you go across the river, as I say, there's East St. Louis, but just a little south is the old French town of Cahokia, where the Tridentine Mass is said in a church built in 1699. Yep. And going further down the river, St. Genevieve, Missouri, Prairie du Roche, Illinois, up until relatively recently, French was still spoken around there. The so-called Pawpaw French, which was an odd dialect, sort of, well, on the way from Canadian French down to Louisiana French, kind of like what you'd expect. So it's, yeah, I mean, I don't want to overemphasize the flyover country element of it. The truth of the matter is that the Midwest is an endlessly fascinating place. One of the things I've noticed in going, even in a state like Iowa, that we don't think of as very exciting, but every county seat, almost every county seat, in a few places they've destroyed them and built hideous, ugly ones, but almost every county seat has a beautiful courthouse built in the late 19th, early 20th centuries with, marble and stained glass and stuff. And the churches in the Midwest can be really beautiful. Although, as I say, depending on where you are, the beautiful exterior sometimes shields devastation within. When you see old pictures of a church that had a gorgeous Gothic altar and side altars, you look now and everything's empty and there's a table. You feel like grabbing a long dead Monsignor and smashing his head into the card table. At least I did.
Okay,
What?
So long story short, you apologize for nothing.
Well, not entirely true. I endorse all of the positive comments.
You filibustered it. You sidetracked it.
I didn't sidetrack it.
You talked all about. I mean, you built it up so much, but ultimately you apologized for nothing.
That's not true. I apologized for something.
What you
I
apologized?
don't know what. I don't remember what it was, but I'm sure I'm very sorry. No, but seriously, that was actually a beautiful encomium to St. Louis, and I can only urge everyone to get to know their hometowns the way Daniel knows St. Louis.
And Andrew knows New Jersey.
Yeah.
Speaking of,
Andrew Philip from knows New Berkeley.
Jersey. And what?
And Philip Smith knows Berkeley.
There we go. Oh, that's right. So Andrew, speaking of Andrew from New Jersey, he says a few notes here.
Uh-oh.
Number one, New Haven is not just some arbitrary place when it comes to pizza. It is the birthplace of pizza in America and is home to some of the
Sorry.
oldest pizzerias in the country due to New Haven having one of the first Italian enclaves. It is
Lombardi's in Little Italy in Manhattan is the oldest pizzeria in the United States.
It is unique in that it closely resembles the original Neapolitan-style pizza and is always served whole as opposed to by the slice. Because of this tradition, New Haven has been called, quote, the pizza capital of the world.
Now, don't you think Naples would dispute that?
Wow, fake news.
No, I'm sure there are Yaleys who believe that. It's fine.
No, note number 2, you can't dox me. Everyone knows I'm from New Jersey. Okay. And
I wouldn't even try. I mean,
number 3, we need to get a graphic for the State of the Week segment, maybe a theme song too. I'll definitely bring it up at the board meeting, and I wouldn't hold your breath though.
No, they're busy planning Tower B.
Yeah, and the Bahamas fact finding.
I forgot about the fact finding tour to the Bahamas.
Yeah.
They're looking to look. They want to explore publishing in the Bahamas over spring break. I don't know what that's about.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how much we can prioritize that if we prioritize that over the other projects that we have going on right now. All right.
The Indian casino.
There's so many worthy investments to make in our company. All right. So, all right. Connor says, I feel Andrew has some residual anger towards Chicago because of the meme I shared about New Jersey some weeks back. I believe this has clouded his judgment on our pizza significantly. To our other distractors, Chicago pizza requires one to eat it. Chicago pizza requires one to eat it with a knife and fork. This is because we have these things called refinement and manners. Pizza with your hands? What is this? The Middle Ages? Wow. Well played, Connor. Well played.
Well, all right. So Connor is obviously standing up for the Windy City.
Yeah.
And again, I'm all in favor of it.
Yeah.
Wherever you're from, be proud.
That's right.
I mean, if somebody wants to get up here and talk in favor of Atlanta pizza, have at it. Salt Lake City pizza.
Don from Florida is going to jump in. He says, I agree that New Haven has phenomenal pizza, but it is a particular type of pizza akin to Chicago pizza. I would not, however, agree New Jersey pizza is better than New York City pizza, especially since I was born and raised in the Bronx.
See? By the way, notice my lapel pin today? It's the state of New York, the flag.
Nice.
Just thought I'd point that out.
I have eaten pizza all over the tri-state area. Good call on Long Island pizza, though. Very underrated.
True.
And then he also says, as a side note, I wonder where Charles would rank the pizza served in the commissary during Lent. New Haven is famous for its clam pizza, which is delicious, by the way. So I wonder if they serve some sort of mystery whitefish pizza in the Tumbler House commissary.
No. What they serve in the Tumbler House commissary are the sort of cheese pizzas that you got out of the machines in junior high school. Only they're not as well made. Not as flavorful. However, having said that, I did ask the lady behind the counter, what's her name? Mavis. I asked her what is the have you ever thought of maybe putting some meat? This is outside of Lent. Putting some meat on these things. And she said, you want meat? Bring it from home. And then you can spread it all over all you want. That's what she told me.
That's fair. That's a fair, I mean, get your own
meat. She said, what's wrong? You're too cheap to pick up some pepperoni at home?
Yeah. Are you?
I guess. I guess I am. But I mean, it's...
Put your money where your mouth is, huh?
Yeah.
I guess it's not that big of a deal to you then.
I guess not. But it's I must say that the on Pizza Day it's kind of nice. Pizza Thursday, it's really kind of nice because you always see outside the commissary those big trash bins, the uh, plastic wrappers that the pizzas came in.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
They're frozen.
Yes. Very good.
And they come from the same company that supplies the LA Unified School District.
All right.
You think that's lost on me? It's not.
Charles,
and by the way, with the Tumbler House commissary pizzas, it doesn't matter whether or not you eat them with a knife and fork.
Why is that?
Why? They taste the same no matter what you do to them.
All right.
I've actually seen a few of them used in Frisbee playing on the lawn.
Yes, Frisbees, yes. All right.
Yep.
Okay. That's mostly it for the memes of production. We're gonna kind of segue into a more serious comment. So we were talking a lot about Chicago, I guess. Charles was saying about the history of Chicago. Superfan Rob has a caveat for that. He says, "Dear Charles and Vincent, having grown up in the Chicago area, I have a bit of a nuance to add about the mayors there. You're correct about the corruption in the mayor's office, but there was one in my and Charles's lifetime who wasn't a one-term mayor who took on the Daily Machine and beat it head on. Jane Byrne. She didn't have enough time to reform the city because she was soon replaced by a new gang of thieves led by Harold Washington. It took Dick Daley's son, Rich, to retake the reins of power for the machine. And yes, Obama was a creature of the Daily Machine. His first chief of staff was Bill Daley. And don't forget when the sitting president of these United States changed his travel plans to personally appear before the IOC and pitch his adopted hometown's bid."
Yeah, and you know the Jane Byrne though, yeah, she was great. I completely forgot about her. I haven't thought of her in I don't know when, but thanks for reminding me. As far as Obama goes, you know, what's his name? Harry Truman was very much the creature of the Kansas City machine. But when he became president, he cut his connections with them. And I don't like Truman, not at all. All right. Although I very much enjoy the band Chicago's song, America Needs You, Harry Truman. I don't like Harry Truman. But having said that, his cutting his connections to, well, I don't remember his name, but the boss in Kansas City, that was the right thing to do. And similarly, if Obama had been anything like a statesman, he would have cut his connection to the Daily Machine. But, you know, as a cheap hood, he, you know, he stayed owned.
All right. So we're going to continue our weekly State of the Week.
Oh boy, this is the state that was.
This week, we're going to go with Rhode Island.
Oh, little Rhody. I love Rhode Island. I really, really love Rhode Island. It is a wonderful state. How do I begin describing it? Well, I can tell you one thing. If you go to visit my family plot in Notre Dame Cemetery in Fall River, you're probably going to make a wrong turn. And as soon as you do, you'll be in Rhode Island.
Wow.
And as you keep going down that road, you'll see a store. And that store has the only S&H green stamp sign I have seen in decades.
Wait, what? What is that?
Well, they used to have things called trading stamps. There were blue chip stamps, S&H green stamps, and whatnot. What it was, you go to supermarkets and you'd buy X amount of groceries, and the supermarket would give you, depending on which stamp company they were allied with, they would give you blue chip stamps, green chip, or S&H green stamps, or whatever. I mean, there used to be plant stamps, as I recall. Anyhow, you get these stamps and you put them in books. And if you had enough books of these trading stamps, you could go to the trading stamp company store. There were a number of these outlets, and you could buy anything from books to furniture, depending on the number of books you had. So basically, the more you shopped, the more trading stamps you got. The more trading stamps you got, the more stuff you could buy at the store, at the trading stamp store. Well, this, I don't know when they stopped doing trading stamps, but it's a long time ago. And yet, this one store, which also was an S&H trading stamp outlet, is still there, and they still have the sign. And I asked the guy some years ago, I said, what would happen if I showed up here with a bunch of old S&H green stamp books? He said, well, I'd redeem them for you. I said, but the company doesn't exist anymore. And I said, as long as you got that sign up there, I've got an obligation. People wanted to buy the sign from him, but he won't sell it. So, but that, of course, is just a little dinky tiny bit of the rich heritage Rhode Island has to offer. They have their own clam chowder.
Oh.
Yes. Now, New England clam chowder is the nice creamy stuff. And Manhattan clam chowder is the delicious tomatoey stuff. Rhode Island clam chowder has a clear broth.
Huh.
It's very different and still very tasty, but different from the other two. Rhode Island was the only one of the 13 colonies founded by a Baptist. Yes, indeed. Roger Williams, who was an early New England Puritan minister, came to accept baptistry and had to leave Massachusetts. He went down to Providence. Now, originally, Rhode Island, as small as it is, was two separate colonies. One was the actual island of Rhode Island, on which the town of Newport sits, and the other was Providence Plantations, centered on Providence. Providence and Newport were the dual capitals of the United Colony of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations. And to this day, the official name of the state is Rhode Island and Providence Plantations. It is the smallest state with the longest name. Roger Williams, as I say, was a Baptist minister. And to this day, the First Baptist Church in Newport, Rhode Island, the First Baptist Church in Providence, Rhode Island, fight over which of them are the oldest Baptist congregation in America. But it's one or the other. Newport also has Touro Synagogue, which I think is the oldest synagogue in the United States. And the other interesting thing about it is that when Roger Williams founded the colony, he established religious toleration for everyone but Catholics. So Rhode Island became a Baptist refuge and a loan of the New England states. It didn't have a state church, but Brown University in Rhode Island, in Providence, was founded as the first Baptist college in America, and it's the only Baptist college in the Ivy League. Brown. But wait, there's a lot more. Despite it's one of the very few states that had its own insurrection, Dorr's Rebellion in 1842, in which the underrepresented hinterland of Rhode Island rebelled against Providence and Newport. After the Civil War, tons of French Canadians and Irish and Italians poured into Rhode Island. They hated each other very much, so the French Canadians and the Italians became Republican, while the Irish ran the Democrats. There are count them, 4 colonial Episcopal churches in Rhode Island, in Providence, Newport, Wickford, and someplace else. I've been to all 4. They have an Indian tribe still resident on its ancestral lands, the Narragansetts. The French are centered in beautiful Woonsocket and Pawtucket, or as we like to say, Pawtucket and Woonsocket. Woonsocket being the longtime headquarters of the Union Saint-Jean-Baptiste, which was one of our two major French-Canadian fraternal associations in the United States. The other being the Association Canado-Américaine in Manchester, New Hampshire. They took up opposite sides in the Sentinelle controversy, which was in Rhode Island. And unfortunately, due to lack of members, both merged with non-French Canadian organizations. But I still have my life insurance from the Association Canado-Américaine, as well as the Knights of Columbus. So my brother's going to make out like a bandit when I croak. Beyond that, Rhode Island has the oldest functioning, what do you call it? The oldest functioning bar in America, the White Horse Inn in Newport. No, I'm sorry. It's yes, it's in Newport. Is it Newport or Providence? Newport. It's in Newport. Newport also boasts the Newport Tower, which may have been built by Vikings or Phoenicians or somebody else.
How old is old for that bar? What, like 1700s?
1600s.
1600s.
Wow. Yeah. It also has St. Mary's Catholic Church that was has colonial roots, and it was the place where John F. Kennedy and Jacqueline Bouvier were married. Blackjack Bouvier's daughter. Newport was very much the resort of the well-to-do and the wealthy in the late 19th century. So it has many beautiful mansions, including the Breakers and another one that's become the home of the American Academy, the American Museum of Illustration, which is a beautiful museum. The gorgeous houses in Newport. The colonial section as well is beautiful with the old State House, the old Colony House, it's called, and the Newport Artillery, which is like the ancient Honorable Artillery in Boston. They have several old colonial militia units still existing in Rhode Island. And of course, Providence was the home of the late H.P. Lovecraft. So I think that tells you everything I want to tell you about Rhode Island.
All right.
They got great seafood, as befits a place that's got so many inlets. It was also one of the beginning sites of the American Revolution in 1772, the burning of His Majesty's customs ship Gaspé. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I've got to say about. It's where the French landed at Newport, 1778, under Rochambeau.
All right, thank you, Charles. That was great.
You're feeling a little more Rhode Islandish now?
I don't think I would like their clear clam chowder.
It's really good.
I'll probably taste it once if I ever am there. I love clam chowder. But yeah.
If some is good, more is better.
Yes. All right. Questions time.
Okay.
We've got a lot of questions from superfan Don from Florida.
All right.
So he says, I have recently started a devotion to Saint Vincent Pallotti due to my love for his life and middle name being Vincent. My question is, why are there so many Vincents and Vincenzos in Italy? And which saint do you think most are named after? Does Don Vincenzo know whom he is named after, or is it just a family name? I know two of the more prominent saints named Vincent were French, that being Ferrer and de Paul. But no self-respecting Italian would name their child after a French saint. Wink, wink. What say you? So I was named after St. Vincent Ferrer, but St. Vincent Ferrer was actually Spanish, not French.
True.
But
no relation to Mel Ferrer.
No. But yeah, so that's who I was named after, and I've read his hagiography, and he was a pretty amazing saint. So that always has been a question on my mind. Why are there so many Italian Vincents? What's the word on that, Charles?
Well, my suspicion, the oldest St. Vincent we have that all the others followed, including St. Vincent Ferrer, was St. Vincent of Saragossa, who was a Spanish deacon who was martyred in the late 200s. Now, for reasons I really don't know, a great abbey outside of Rome was named in his honor and that of St. Anastasius, and it was called St. Vincent and Anastasius. It was a big abbey, heavily endowed by Charlemagne, and as a result, a lot of people, the name came to Italy, and a lot of people were named after him, and a lot of them became saints on their own, including St. Vincent Pallotti.
Wait, so, that's surprising to me because I feel like St. Vincent Saragossa is very obscure, and St. Vincent Pallotti.
Well, they're obscure here and now, but they weren't obscure then.
But I
Remember,
mean,
there
like
was a lot of
you don't have like festivals or something, or maybe you do. Maybe I just don't
yes, you do.
know.
Of course, you do. You just don't know. But they have a lot of them. I mean, you got to bear in mind, certainly in France, Spain, Italy, and Portugal, and a lot of other countries, every locality has its patron saint.
Yeah.
Now, stop and think about how many, and it has festivals in honor of them. Stop and think about how many patronal festivals there are.
Yeah, but we're not talking about a small local town having a lot of people named Vincent. We're talking about as an entire a much broader area of people.
Well, yeah, but you got to bear in mind that St. Vincent of Saragossa, was the first Vincent that we know of, and all the subsequent Vincents were named after him. I mean, like Vincent Ferrer. I'll give you an example. Take the name Charles.
Yeah.
As one does. The first Charles of any prominence was Blessed Charlemagne. Now, most people named Charles today, and I include both Charles I of Austria and Charles the 10th of France, would say that their patron was St. Charles Borromeo. But who was St. Charles Borromeo named after? Charlemagne. What was St. Charles Borromeo's name day that he celebrated? January 28th, not November 9th, which is his feast. And interestingly enough, Karl XVI, Gustav, the King of Sweden, being Lutheran, he can't celebrate St. Charles Borromeo anyway. So what is his name day? January 28th, Blessed Charlemagne.
Well, I mean, Charlemagne is a huge deal, so that's not surprising to me.
No, but he's a blessed. And the thing is, it's interesting to me that both Charles the First of Austria and Charles the 10th of France, who were in a sense direct line from him, nevertheless honored St. Charles Borromeo as their name saints. But St. Charles Borromeo himself honored Charlemagne as his name saint. The King of Sweden, being a Lutheran and thus not able to honor a post-Reformation Catholic saint, celebrates Charlemagne's Day as his name day.
Okay. Is your point counter to mine? I feel like
no, it's alongside.
Oh, okay.
It's just there. It's just
curiosity. I was just saying, like, I mean, there are certain names where it's obvious, or at least it seems obvious to me, whether it's Michael, Peter, John.
But it's not with Vincent, and it's not with Charles. I was illustrating your point.
Well, so I mean, weren't you saying though that Charles sort of started with Charlemagne though?
Well, it did the way Vincent did with St. Vincent of Saragossa. But a lot of subsequent people looked not to Charlemagne, but to Charles Borromeo as their patron because they're named Charles. And so similarly, a lot of Vincents don't look at the first Vincent, but at subsequent Vincents as their patron saints.
I still say Charlemagne makes a much bigger landfall than St. Vincent of Saragossa.
Well, yes, but don't forget, Charlemagne endowed a monastery in St. Vincent of Saragossa's name. Now, you might ask, why did he do that? And the answer is, remember, he invaded Spain.
I see.
And what was one of the cities he fought for? Saragossa.
Hmm.
And who's the patron of Saragossa? St. Vincent of Saragossa.
Hmm. Okay.
And just to make things even more annoying, Saragossa is a corruption of the Latin name, which was Caesar Augusta.
Interesting. Okay.
It was as Spain was absorbed by the Vandals and the Visigoths, Caesar Augusta was a Roman holdout for many, many years. So now you know.
All right. What are Charles's thoughts on the life and work of Austrian monarchist Erik von Kuehnelt-Leddhin? Very much admire his work, and I find it interesting he was also a close friend and collaborator with William Buckley.
Well, he was in William Buckley's earlier days, you bet. But latterly, he appeared less and less in National Review. To answer your question, I like von Kuehnelt-Leddhin a lot, and I've read most of his books. I was in correspondence with him and talked to him on the phone several times. I never met him personally, but he had a very big effect on my personal development. I used to laugh that he and Thomas Molnar, whom I did meet a number of times and knew very well, were between them Austria-Hungary. Get it? Austria-Hungary.
Yeah.
And they both vote for the National Review and for Triumph magazine. So I like him.
To try to get some more people into him, what do you feel are some of his perspectives that are uniquely him, that are rare to see in other historians?
Well, first and foremost, and I'm not being funny, he gave full credit to the role of stupidity in human affairs. And that's very, very important. It really is. I mean, without understanding how important stupidity is in history, you get a very distorted view. And without understanding,
yeah, because you'd assume everything's sort of calculated, I guess.
well, it's either calculated or else it just happens.
Yeah.
What you lose out on there in the rich texture of human endeavor is the shrieking stupidity that animates us all from time to time. You know, to steal a line from Lincoln, I like to say that all people are stupid most of the time, and most people are stupid all the time.
Lincoln said that?
No, he said you can't fool all the people all the time. Most people all the time.
I see.
But it's a paraphrase.
Yeah.
And I think it's very true. I think all of us have stupid fits. I mean, I think if anyone is honest, sometimes you stop and you look at what you've said or done on a given occasion. You say, "Why'd you do that?" Stupid. It revolts our sense of pride. It disgusts us to think that we can be stupid. We'd rather be evil than stupid.
Hmm.
And mind you, stupidity can be evil when it's willful, when it's coupled with arrogance. Stupid has no right to be arrogant, but it so often is.
Hmm.
You know, I'm Big King Moron, and you must obey. Well, great. But there's a lot more than that. I mean, I think he understood, in a way most Americans don't, our limitations in approaching Europe and Europe's limitations in approaching America. It was very, and you see this with both him and Otto von Habsburg, and I think for similar reasons. There are certain similarities between what was the United States and the Austro-Hungarian milieu. And they're not obviously apparent at first, but the more you think about it, the more you see them. I think he had a very good understanding of the essential utopianism of the left, and also the fact that it's difficult defining our kind of people is very hard. He called himself a classic liberal, um, by which he meant an adherent of capitalism and so on. But he was a monarchist, um, and he found the phrase conservative troubling. He pointed out he was very, very learned. He knew all sorts of stuff about all sorts of places. So one of the things he pointed out is that conservatism is a phrase that has its origin in Protestant countries. In Scandinavia, in Prussia, and Britain, you had conservative parties. But in Catholic countries, they spoke of the right. Le droit in France, the derecho in Spain, and so forth. Diritto in Italy. And these concepts are, but they're far from identical. And he pointed out that a great deal of non-classic liberalism was already present in Protestant societies. So I mean, he was I mean, he had encyclopedic knowledge of so many things. I would recommend, if you want to get to know his work, 3 books in particular, and they are Liberty or Equality, in which he said you can't have both, basically, which I think is true.
We sell that on the bookstore, tumblerhouse.com.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that a plug? How much is it?
$14.95.
So you've got to get something else to take advantage of the free shipping and handling.
Probably Star Spangled Crown.
Okay. That'd be a good recommendation. And then Leftism Revisited, which is the updating of his book Leftism, also worth reading. And lastly, and this is a very rare book. I think I wrote a blurb for a new edition that's coming out, I think. But or at least I promised to. I hope I did. Anyhow, it's a book that's terribly underrated, but really worth reading, called The Intelligent American's Guide to Europe. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to look those up myself. Intelligent American's Guide to Europe.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Charles.
You're welcome.
Another question from Don, who says, what are your thoughts on the work and impact of Austrian economists Karl Menger and Eugen von Bohm-Bawerk, both fierce critics of Marxism and considered the founders of the Austrian School of Economics? What was their working relationship like with Emperor Franz Joseph?
I have no idea. I really don't know.
You don't know?
I've heard the names, but I don't know enough to comment intelligently on them.
Okay. I very much enjoyed reading Vicars of Christ. Available on tumblerhouse.com, $24.95.
You could get that with Liberty or Equality.
That's true. My question to Charles is, which popes does he regard as the greatest papal heroes who stood up to great evil, including physical threats, thinking of St. Leo the Great? And who are the papal cowards who shrunk in the face of evil and physical threats?
Woof. Well, that's a lot. But just offhand, St. Leo I, St. Gregory I, St. Gregory VII, Clement VII, Pius VI, Pius VII.
Is it possible to briefly say what they did, like in one sentence or something? Like what?
Well, all right. St. Leo I held off Attila the Hun. St. Gregory the Great we know about. We talked about him earlier today. Clement VII was Pope during the sack of Rome. And he stood up to Henry VIII on the marriage issue. Pius VI and Pius VII were both imprisoned by Napoleon. Blessed Pius IX fought the Risorgimento and became the prisoner of the Vatican. And of course, Pius XII stood up to the great dictators during World War II, as opposed to being Hitler's Pope, which the morons and scumbuckets like to play with. Now, cowards. Well, Liberius, who signed the Semi-Arian Creed at Sirmium, Honorius, who silenced the Orthodox during the Monothelite heresy, Clement V, who abolished the Templars.
Why did he do that?
Well, because he was living in Avignon, and the King of France pushed him. Let me see. If they were not guilty, if they were guilty, then they deserved it, I guess. That's one of history's great fights. He wasn't a coward, but he was really annoying. It was Urban VIII, who backed the Swedes and then the French against the Holy Roman Emperor during the 30 Years' War.
Why?
Personal ambition. He was, well, basically, he was afraid that if the Protestants were defeated by the Holy Roman Empire, by the Habsburgs, he would end up being reduced to a sort of personal chaplain to the Habsburgs. Although considering what he ended up doing during the war with Castro, that was a little town he attacked near the Papal States, maybe being the domestic chaplain of the Habsburgs would have been a better role for him. But, who's to say? It's certainly be a better role for the current Pope. Let's see. Then there's, in terms of people standing up, also John Paul II and the Communists. Can't forget him. And then, let's see, as far as cowards go, well, the current Holy Father in China, I think that's a real wonderful example. Clement XIV and knuckling under as far as the Jesuits went.
Was that, what was that? Was that during
1770s?
Yeah.
And of course, and I can cite his predecessor who refused to, Clement XIII, as a hero who stood up.
What did he do?
He refused the demands of the various kings of Europe to abolish the Jesuits. Clement XIV knuckled under.
Okay, that's a good list. Right, final question on the government and monarchy of Great Britain. King Henry VIII, Thomas and Oliver Cromwell, the persecution of Catholics, Queen Elizabeth I, the execution of Mary Queen of Scots, the Glorious Revolution, the 45 Rebellion, their promulgation of the Black Legend, the mistreatment of the Irish, use of inhumane torture on their prisoners, the War of 1812, their involvement in the Treaty of Versailles, and the Mandate for Palestine. I mention all of these, and I am sure missing others, to ask, are the government and monarchy of Great Britain the greatest villains of the past 500 years?
Queen Mary Tudor and her much better set of bishops than Henry VIII inherited, the ones she appointed. Queen Anne and her saving the Catholics of Maryland from being utterly destroyed. King George III and his initial push for Catholic emancipation, which led directly to the American Revolution because the Founding Fathers hated the church so much. The support of George III and George IV for the last Stuart king in exile, Henry IX. George IV's visit to Ireland and to Scotland, winning the hearts of the people there. The protection of many Catholic religious orders in Africa, Asia, and the Americas, and Australia, and in India for their evangelization. The rescue of Pope Pius VI by the British during the Napoleonic War. Let me see. The War of 1812 and the defense of the French Canadians against the Americans. Ditto with the Quebec Act under George III. Oh, I'm sorry. Are we talking about the same organization? Oh, yes, that's right. We are. Why? Because you can do that with anything. All you have to do is line up the bad stuff. It's called creating a straw man. Biggest villains? You give me any other country, and I can do the same thing for you. And so much is a matter of perspective. You say the War of 1812. I presume you mean the burning of Washington. We forget that was in reprisal for the burning of Toronto, which was then the capital of Canada.
Portugal.
Oh, easy peasy. The attack on the Jesuit mission state of Paraguay, for starters.
Oh, darn. I forgot about that Jesuit attack on the mission state in Paraguay.
The attack on the Jesuits, the Bandeirantes. The attack on the Jesuits in general by Pombal, who was the one who began their suppression. The terrible defeat of Don Miguel by Don Pedro in the Liberal War in the 1820s and 30s, and the suppression of the church lands and properties in 1834.
Okay, smart guy.
I'm not finished.
No, you're finished. How about Luxembourg?
Sure. The Grand Duke being faced with the euthanasia bill, refusing to sign off on it, and having his power of veto taken away.
I thought you were pointing out the villain.
It's the Luxembourg government.
Oh, okay.
They were the scumbag, filthy people who should all go to hell together. But luckily, it was a Christian Democrat government, so I guess it was all right. Conservatives. They weren't those evil socialists.
All right.
Which pile of excrement do you prefer?
I prefer the...
Exactly. You fell into the trap. Name me a country and I'll show you.
I feel like you shouldn't be calling all countries of the world piles of excrement.
They can be. They don't have to be. Just like with us as individuals. Countries reflect individuals, and individuals are capable of greatness and of horror.
Right.
I want everything to be good guy and bad guy, and then I can be on the good guy team. That's what we would like. We would like everything to nicely settle itself into good guys and bad guys. And then I'm with the good guys. I sure am. You are, really. So I take it when you go to confession, you go to bless the priest. Pouting.
All right, Charles.
I could also point out to you, if I wanted to get really, I think one of the greatest British monarchs, well, actually the greatest British monarch of the 20th century, was Edward VII, who was the first British monarch to go to Mass since 1688 in public. When the King of Portugal was murdered in 1908, he went to the Requiem at St. James' Spanish Place. And he came into the church on his deathbed. He also was very popular among the Irish. And that's something that's completely forgotten.
All right.
I mean, you can play that game with any nationality you want and any government you want. Look at our own country, the United States. Was it a blessed refuge of freedom for people coming from abroad who were either politically or religiously persecuted at home, or else they were economic failures and needed to, make something of themselves someplace? Or was it a country built on genocide and founded on genocide and built on slavery? The answer is both, and neither.
Okay.
No. I want good guy and bad guy. And wherever the good guy, I'm one of them.
Good guy,
Well,
bad guy. Okay.
It's easy to think that way. And it's dangerous. It's dangerous because, as we see in Central Europe, it can lead to all sorts of horrors. I mean, as I like to say, every people has its martyrs and its heroes. But very often, the martyrs of one group were created by the heroes of another.
This is too complicated. I don't like this.
I know, it's so bad. I want simple, bite-sized chunk answers. Okay, fine. Your people, whoever they were always right, and their neighbors were always wrong. Is that better? Is that comforting?
Yes.
It's as American as the Hatfields and the McCoys, and as Italian as the Mafia.
Okay.
Or if you like, as French as a Jacobin. I don't want you to be left out there alone. I'll join
you. Oh, wow. All right, that was a good one, Charles.
Well, which is the most Italian, Don Gotti or Leonardo da Vinci? Both. Both.
All right.
Yeah, well, you're relativizing everything. No, I'm not. Real people are.
All right. Last question for today is from Adrian, who says, "Greetings to both you and Charles. I am currently reading the prophetic books of the Old Testament, and one of the recurring accusations that the prophets give is Israel's abandonment of the Sabbath. My question for Charles is, how did Christians in a more Christian age keep the Lord's Day? Was eating out permissible? Was it even possible? How much activity was allowed, and how much was considered sinful? Where did Christian societies draw the line?"
Well, basically, you have to spend all day in church listening to sermons.
No.
No. Oh, okay. Well, to be honest with you, about the only labor that was really permitted was making food in terms of labor. And that's why it's permissible not only to eat it, to make it, to eat it, but to buy it. But other than that, so you can go to restaurants and that kind of thing. But other than that, what was called manual servile labor was forbidden on Sunday.
Where are we talking about right now, and what time period?
Medieval Europe.
Medieval Europe. Okay.
But games and sports and all that were permitted. It was required you went to mass, and in many places people would go in the afternoon to vespers, late afternoon. But Sunday, in a lot of places, was the only day you had off of work. So,
What?
what's that?
Well, okay, playing devil's advocate, like what about like an innkeeper or something?
No, they, as I say, they were allowed to function.
Yeah.
But if you were blacksmithing or, that kind of stuff, no.
Okay.
Farming, no. Unless something was absolutely required to protect the crops.
Hmm.
But other than things that innkeeping deals directly with personal survival. So that was,
Right. Of course.
but anything beyond that, no. And of course, the games of all kinds were permitted. Dancing, uh, of a as long as it wasn't lascivious. Basically, Sundays, like the major holy days, became days both of religious exercises and recreation. Remember, too, there's several things going on. On the one hand, Saturday was not a day off,
Ah, interesting. Okay.
but on the other hand, all holy days of obligation were. And so, in addition to Sundays, you had something like 30 or 40 days of the year off, scattered.
Wow.
They had a large number of holy days of obligation, but they, obviously they went around. They
Yeah.
weren't.
Yeah.
So over 365 days, let's see how many of those will be Sundays. How many Sundays in a year? 52. So basically, you've got 52 plus say 40 days of obligation, 92 days off a year. That's not too bad.
Okay. Um.
But it's scattered. For instance, don't forget with Christmas, you had the 12 days off in the sense you had Sunday off. Uh, and you had 3 days off for Easter, 3 days off for Pentecost, Holy Weeks off, and on and on and on.
So, um, one of the things I learned from Saint Francis de Sales in terms of spirituality is, there's two types of things. There's commandments and counsels.
Yeah,
Where not doing a commandment is punished by pain of sin. Not doing a counsel, well, that's just kind of like a missed opportunity, right? Like, to grow in holiness.
yeah.
So is so how do those, keeping in mind those two things, what comes into play for Sunday? Like, is that a matter of keeping a commandment or doing a counsel to set aside time for spiritual stuff?
That's a commandment. Keep holy the Sabbath day. That's why we speak of the mass obligation.
Well, the mass obligation, but like, um okay, so what would be various things that you would say are sinful to do on Sunday in terms of work?
Well, and again, we live in a society today where sometimes you don't have a choice if you want to keep your job. So, but working in retail, uh, shops, uh, the insurance, white collar jobs, all that kind of stuff. Um,
Okay, let's say, let's use some real world, real life applications here, some real decision making. So let's say someone's has a very busy job and has to do most of their errands on Saturday and Sunday. Uh, let's say one of the errands is doing taxes on Sunday.
he should try not to, but if he's going to lose his job, if he doesn't, he's stuck.
Well, doing in taxes, how do you lose a job for that?
Well, if you're a tax man,
I'm talking about normal people.
oh them, uh, I would try and avoid it. If you could possibly do it on Saturday, do it on Saturday.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. I see. So it seems like there's nothing concrete, but ideally you
No,
want to try to cram all your things into the other days of the week, it sounds like.
Yeah, if you can.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't, you can't. But if you can, you should.
Well, see, that's kind of where, I mean, if you can't, you can't. To me, that sounds like that's not a matter. Like, if you have that approach, it sounds like it's ignoring whether it's sinful or not.
No, it's not. I mean, it's just like when even when the terms of fasting and abstinence were much more severe than they are in our time. Working men were always absolved of them. And I mean physically working men. I don't mean pen pushes. Because the church has always understood that some states in life require things that others don't.
I see.
And obviously, the easier your state in life, the more the church expects out of you.
I see.
The harder your state in life, well, she understands.
Okay. All right. So. Okay. Do you have any other guidelines for how to keep holy the Sabbath?
Well, yeah. I mean, ideally, if you've got a family, ideally you should try to make Sunday a family day. For starters, going to mass together, and then during the course of the day doing something as a family. And by that, I don't mean necessarily sitting in front of the TV and watching the game. One of the things we did when I was a kid, which I was, I still remember fondly, and it did a lot for me, was we'd go on drives. We'd drive out into the countryside and explore. And we'd find some place for lunch, and then keep on driving around, find someplace else for dinner, and then come home. And that, now, in a lot of places at that time, not where we were, but in a lot of places, families would do that during the morning and afternoon, the morning after mass and into the afternoon. And then they come back to town because there would be vespers at the church. So they go to vespers and then go home for Sunday night dinner, which again was very much of a family thing. I was just the other night looking at a cookbook online, which my mother owned, called Meals Tested, Tasted, and Approved. It came out from Good Housekeeping in 1930. And her French mother-in-law, my grandmother, gave it to her when she got married. And it was interesting. The end of the book has menus. Now, remember, this came out in 1930 during the Depression. And what I found interesting was that there was only meat as the main course. It had a set of menus for the whole week. Only 3 of them had meat. Because most Americans did not eat meat every day of the week back then.
Yeah.
But Sunday, roast beef day. And of course, I know a lot of places where the South and other places where Sunday meant fried chicken.
Yeah. In my household, Sunday kind of meant big dessert day.
Well, see, that's fine. Whatever it is, so long as it brings you together.
Yeah.
And and in truth, to the degree that you possibly can, dinner should be a family meal. If not eaten in front of the television, not everybody going out, early enough to accommodate people coming back from school and work, or late enough rather, to accommodate everybody coming back from school and work, early enough that they might be able to do something else in the evening after. But dinner should be a family meal without a doubt.
Yeah. That's so important, I feel. That's because I've seen families where non-Christian families where each member of the family does is their own thing, and I
Yeah.
felt like it was like the saddest thing in the world.
Well,
Um,
it's basically like the parents are running a boarding house for the children,
yeah,
and that and the thing is, when you have dinner together, you chat over the day, you chat over all sorts of things. I've told her the story of why I forced myself to learn to read.
so you could understand them at dinner. Yeah, at the table. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that uh, I mean, I recommend it highly for people. Your children will be formed in their manners and their way of carrying themselves
You know, it's
by seeing how you are at dinner.
it's so funny too because that's I guess I don't know if you'd call it traditional. To me, it's just so essential. It's weird to divide it between calling it traditional and progressive, but I forgot the context, but I remember talking with other people. I don't know if it was at some sort of retreat or something, but I think like secular people would say that they missed the having dinner together. Like that was something that they missed. Like that was something that they needed to work on because they missed that. And that's so interesting to me because it's like society is trying to break up the family,
Yeah,
but that's like an example of like what people really want deep down inside are some of these traditional family things, like sitting down together. you
yeah,
know
it's exactly what they
in our
want.
pursuit of happiness, we run completely away from the things that make us feel fulfilled and happy. It's so ironic and diabolic, to be honest. But yeah,
And I have to say that I have to say that gathering your children around the dinner table, the father leading everyone in grace, uh, and the children being taught how to use knives and forks properly and so on, etiquette, in other words, is a very, very important part of their upbringing. Uh, and it establishes a feeling for the family unit. You know,
yeah.
you look at your brothers and sisters around the table, and you realize these are my people. I may not like them all the time, but they're still my people.
It's funny, you said table manners and stuff like that, how to use a fork and knife. That immediately triggered a recent conversation I had with a coworker because her family comes from this place where they're cotillion
Yeah,
dinners and stuff like that. And she was telling me some of their manners. Like there's like so many different utensils and
yeah,
like even with soup, it was so interesting. Like you should not finish your soup because you have to, in order to finish your soup, you have to clank the pot or
the bowl.
the bowl, and
Yeah,
you can't be clinking that bowl. I know that's so
no.
funny to me. That's high class society.
Well, you see, the thing is that one of the rules, by the way, if you find yourself sitting at a table at a banquet or something, and there are a ton of utensils you've never seen before, a good rule of thumb is work outward in.
Okay,
As the different courses come, you can presume that the utensil for this course are out here. They're
yeah.
taken away. The next course, the next course, the next course, in. And then, of course, whatever's left at the end is obviously for the dessert.
So I assume you've been in those situations. Did you have to sort of adapt and learn on the fly, or were you prepared going in?
I was fortunate. I was prepared.
Okay.
Well, that's the reason why I always give. Well, you remember what I gave you for your birthday, your
Yeah,
wedding day.
yeah, post. Yeah.
I gave you Emily Post, yeah,
Yeah.
and that I always give an etiquette book for couples getting married, always. And it's not just so that they can entertain and lavishly and entertain me when I'm around, so that I can be looked after and fed with party foods and taken care of and looked after and stuff. It's also uh, because that helps determine the tenor of the household they're establishing.
That's very true.
And it's, mind you, I think if you were given 7 or 8 books of etiquette on your wedding day,
Yeah.
that might be excessive. But I can't think of a better gift. And the funny thing is, new brides love etiquette books.
Yeah, my wife has looked at that absolutely, because like for things like because we were late on the thank you cards, so it's like, oh, what's the timeline for thank you cards?
Yeah.
And so it said it in there. So that's definitely a good wedding gift.
It really is. And whenever you're looking at a couple getting married, people tend to look at them purely as the couple getting married and the wedding and all that. No, you have to look at them as a new household getting born.
Mm.
Now, obviously, if they don't have children, then that's a different story. But if and as and when they do, the nature of the thing alters. But it's what it was from the beginning, because the intention is always that the household will grow and you'll have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 or 12 kids, depending on whatever appears. Um, and the family is truly the building block of society, without a doubt. And that also, incidentally, extended families are so important to the degree that your children, can manage it, and that you and your brothers and/or sisters can manage it. The cousins should be close. You should try to. It gets very difficult today because it gets very, very difficult because, unfortunately, uh, we travel everywhere. We move, we groove, go into other things. But it's just the nature of the beast, I'm afraid. But to the degree that you can maintain those ties, maintain them. Because the nuclear family is the basis of the extended family. And what is the extended family? Well, a major building block of society, and the tendency of modern society to destroy the extended family is part and parcel and deeply connected to the destruction of the nuclear family.
Hmm. All right, time to wrap up the show. That's right. Let's wrap it up. Any closing thoughts, Charles?
Well, closing thoughts. Well, yes, we touched on St. Patrick's Day, didn't we? And we touched on St. Joseph's Day. Now, even though I'm going to be amongst the Czechs on St. Joseph's Day, for those of you who are able, go to St. Joseph's table. Those of you who are able, go to St. Joseph's table.
Well done, Charles. You are a poet and you don't even know it.
My feet show it. They're Longfellows.
Okay.
That was so old. The first time I heard it, I was literally about 7. But anyway, no, it's St. Joseph's table is a wonderful custom. Now, usually the Italian Catholic Federation do it in Arcadia.
Well, yeah, Holy Angels Parish is big there. I don't know. I haven't been active in that parish. I mean, I don't really go there, but we'll see.
Well, you know the best St. Joseph's table in L.A.
Yeah, St. Peter's.
Yes, it is. St. Peter's Italian Church in Chinatown, ladies and gentlemen. St. Joseph's table. Gotta tell you, it's the best.
We're gonna try to go there. We're gonna try to go there. I know my wife has gone there before, and she's enjoyed it highly.
It's so good. And I got to tell you, they advertise the free spaghetti. And yeah, there is free spaghetti with free sauce. That's all true. What they don't tell you is that they will charge you for the meatballs and the Italian sausage.
Uh-oh.
But that's okay. It doesn't matter. It's all for a good cause. And they serve wine from the St. Anthony Vineyards, the LA's finest.
Mm-hmm.
The variety known vulgarly as Dago Red.
Yeah.
What? You never heard that phrase?
I've heard it.
Now,
Not a fan. Not a fan.
What, of the phrase or the wine itself?
The wine, no. The phrase.
You're okay with Chianti?
I'm okay with Chianti.
With the straw covering of the bottle?
I'm okay.
And then the straw covering of the bottle, and after you've drained the last drop of Dago Red, sticking a candle in it. You see that in a lot of bohemian homes, I'll tell you.
All right, Charles.
Why is it whenever the conversation turns to Chianti and the use of its bottles, you suddenly want to move on? Why is that? You know what it is? You're afraid of the cliche.
I guess I am. I don't know what has made me so afraid of the cliche.
Don't be afraid of the cliche. Embrace the cliche. Live the cliche.
Live the cliche. There we go. Yeah.
Live the cliche. I'm telling you, it's the way. And you get that. Stop and think of this. All right. Imagine you come home from a long day of work at the tower. All right. There's your wife. There's the spaghetti and meatballs on the table. And there, also on the table, 2 of these Chianti bottles with candles in them.
That's nice. That's a nice table. That's a nice setting.
So that wouldn't disturb you.
It disturbs me more you talking about it than me actually. That's what disturbs me.
I see.
There's nothing wrong with it, but when you're talking about it, there's something underneath.
No. I'm providing reassurance.
All right.
It's like Mr. Cacciatore's. You know it is.
Yeah, I know. It's like Mr. Cacciatore's. Well, yeah.
If you blundered into Mr. Cacciatore's all on your own, you'd be happy. You'd be happy with the place.
Yeah.
If I took you there, you would think I was having you on.
That's actually true.
Yeah, it is true. I know exactly. We'd go in and I'd point out all the plastic grapes and stuff hanging on the walls. And you see, if you just went in there by yourself, you go, oh, that's nice. But if I said, oh, look at the plastic grapes, you'd be really annoyed with me. You would.
I would. That's right.
Yes. This is what I'm telling you. And again, if you looked out and you saw the medical center across the street, you just shrug and say, okay, great. But if I said, oh, look, we're across from the medical center, you'd be annoyed with me.
That's very true. All right, Charles, I will.
Even if I pointed out that the bartender was actually an Irish cop, by yourself, not a problem. With me, you'd be annoyed.
All right, I'll work on being more patient with your pointing out of things, Charles.
Oh, what am I supposed to do? Forget about them? Be dead to them? Ignore them, perhaps?
Ignore it.
I'll bet if I said to you, oh, look, such lovely plastic grapes.
All right, let's let it go, Charles. Let's just finish up and let's get out of here.
Okay, fine. Be that way. I'll ask you 3 questions.
All right.
What city was H.P. Lovecraft from?
Providence, Rhode Island. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. If it's Monday, what is it?
It's off the menu.
And what about the soul you save? Whose might it be?
It may be your own.
God bless you, Gary. And cool, Daddy.
Cool, Daddy. Yeah.
Take care, again. Happy St. Patrick's Day.